Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another recent reads on Sunday, the video in which I look back at my reading and talk about what I read and what I'm reading currently, or something like that. Oh, and I'm just gonna insert this because I forgot again to mention. So I will try to find a place where I can insert this. Please check out the Booktube Prize. We are still looking for judges. We still don't have enough judges for the Booktube Prize. I will leave a link to Robert's video about what it means to be a judge, what your commitment would be. But we are about 60 judges short now, and we should start the Booktube Prize beginning of next year. So please check that out, and if you can at all, if you find the time, I would really urge you to sign up, at least for one round. Thank you. What a week, wasn't it? I mean, you're probably not in Germany, so the US viewers and most of the world is very consumed with the US elections. But we had our government crisis as well here in Germany, and our government fell. Not, well, unexpectedly in terms of that it had to happen now, when we need a government in order to deal with all the international stuff. But never mind, what a week. So that's just to say, I'm not talking about politics on this channel, as you know, but I needed some comfort reads, and I reread this really charming novella by Becky Chambers, a psalm for the wild-built. It's the first, I don't think it says it here. Yeah, Monk and Robot. The first in a duology, the Monk and Robot duology, and it has a sticker, but I did not feel like I could get angry about that at the moment. And it was published 2 or 3 years back, I think. Let me check. Yes, 2021. Of course, Becky Chambers, well-known sci-fi author, especially for her A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. That's that series, which is fantastic. And this is a novella about a monk. It's set on a moon, Panga, which is kind of Earth-like when you look at the people and the lifestyle. And our main character is a monk, sibling Dex, and he has an existential crisis. He does not know what to do with his life. Everybody seems content, and he isn't. So he decides to become a tea monk, which is a traveling monk, traveling from village to village, and offering advice and listening to people and a good cup of tea. The other premise of this society is that a long time ago, centuries ago, they used very advanced society using IA robot kind of things, and then the robots became self-aware, and there was an agreement reached that the robots would leave and humans would not try to interfere or find them, and they left into the wilderness. They went, and they were never heard of before again, until sibling Dex meets one, Moscap, and story takes off from there. And it's serious issues about technology, about what it means to be human, whether a robot with a self-conscious robot is living. It's not human, obviously, but whether it is a person. But yeah, I reread it, so I knew it would be a comforting read, and it's just so charming. And yeah, it was the exact right thing that I needed last week. My only qualm with this, the second one, by the way, A Prayer for the Crown Shy, is also charming, wonderful. So the duology I can highly recommend. My only qualm with this is it's a really short novella, 100 130 pages and the font is big. So, you know, it's a short novella. And I think it's too expensive. The book is just too expensive, but what the heck? It's worth it. So that was one of the things that I read and I loved it. And then another book that I finished some time ago, but I think, if I remember correctly, I haven't wrapped it up on this channel, and that is The Summer Without Man by Terri Hustvedt, which I read together with Heidi from my reading life. Again, for me, this was a reread. For Heidi, it was a first read, and I loved the reread. I don't know why this has such a low rating on Goodreads, to be honest, because I think, again, it's a really charming book, full of humor, but addressing also serious issues of feminism and sexism. And the premise of the book is we have Mia, a 55-year-old poet who has been married for 30 plus years to Boris. And then Boris all of a sudden needs a pause. That's the opening sentence. Sometimes after he said the word pause, I went mad and landed in the hospital. And the pause, as Mia explains later, is a colleague of Boris, French, and 20 years younger. And then Mia first has a breakdown, and then she decides to spend the summer, she lives in New York, to spend the summer giving a workshop at her Minnesota hometown for schoolgirls. That is basically the setting of the book. And you meet all kinds of women. The neighbor who is in a bit of a difficult marriage with 2 young children. Mia's mother with her, she lives in a assisted facility, and she has friends, all of them 85 plus. And of course we have the schoolgirls of this workshop, and they're all just preteen, so about 12-ish. And yeah, it's addressing what women's life is, could be, should be. But if I say that, I'm missing the part of the humor. It's insightful, but it's also it's not bitter. It's not finger wagging. It's just a really charming humor, full of humor, but definitely addressing the right issue. So I loved it. I loved the reread as well. And then another reread kinda, and that is the Iliad. But the translation that I read together with Adam from Memento Mori is the relatively new Emily Wilson translation, which came out last year. And I've read the Iliad twice before in a translation that is not in verse but is a prose translation, and very, very long time ago an abbreviated version in German when I was in school. And this is Emily Wilson's verse translation, and it's wonderful. It's gorgeous. I mean, you know me. I am not one for... When have I ever talked about a book that is basically 90% battle scenes? I don't think ever. It's not my type of book. I'm not into war literature, novels. I'm not into that whole, heroes on the battlefield kind of type of novel. It's just not my thing at all. And still, I love the Iliad. And it is, I would say, 70% you have battlefield scenes, and they are gross. I mean, there is brain splatter all over the place. Homer did not sugarcoat what it means to be in war, man on man. And of course, the overarching story is Achilles, who in the beginning, I mean, it opens with that it's a story about wrath, and the one who is wrathful is, I can't find the first sentence, so this is, anyway, doesn't really matter. It opens with the narrator asking, who is this guy who is so vengeful and wrathful? And that is, of course, Achilles. He has an argument, discussion with Agamemnon being the head, the leader of the Greeks, and they have been at Troy for 10 years when this book happens. And then Agamemnon insulted Achilles, taking away Achilles' favorite slave woman that he captured during the battle. And then Achilles is like, how can I say that? He is not happy and he decides not to fight anymore. So a big portion of the book, we have the hero, Achilles, not being engaged in battle. And what happens and why he returns to battle and what happens then is the story of the book. And it ends, for those of you who haven't read it and who maybe expect that it is ending with the Trojan horse and the Greek victory and burning down Troy. It's not. It ends before that with one of the heroes from the other side being killed and the mourning period. Not mourning in terms of, but mourning, M-O-U. And that's when the book ends, because it is about Achilles and his wrath and what happens and his redemption, if you want to call it that. So, yes. If you want to read the Iliad or the Odyssey and have never done so, please pick up Emily Wilson's translation. And even if you read both books by other translators, this is really, really worth reading. So that's the 3 books that I finished that I wanted to talk about, and then just a mention of the books that I'm currently reading. The first, it's of course nonfiction November, so my books are mainly nonfiction, and I picked up Joan Didion's Slouching Towards Bethlehem, essay collection published in 1968. And I'm reading this together with Terri, and we just halfway through, the last thing we read is the title essay, which is one of Joan Didion's most famous essays, I would say, and it is long. It's 60 pages long in this edition, and it is the account of Joan Didion going to San Francisco, staying there for the while just before the summer of love, and encountering all kinds of hippie types. And it's not a very, she just presents the people, often in dialogue, what they talk about to her, but also what they talk with each other. It's an essay going down memory lane, so to speak, for present day readers. And the next section is personal essays, and that we will check in, I think, a week from now. So that's what I'm currently reading. I'm also having it's a lot of buddy reads, a buddy read with Kathleen, and we are reading For Her Own Good by Barbara Ehrenreich and Deirdre English, published in 1976. And this is about an exploration 2 centuries of the experts' advice to women, especially on the medical front. And it explains how the big shift from, let's say, the Middle Ages, the old order before industrialization, and what happened after that, especially when it comes to the position of women who were in the old order not equal. Don't get me wrong, we are not having unicorns and rainbows here. It was a patriarchal society, and the men were the head of the household, the head of the village, the head of the state, the head of the church. But women had a very specific valued role in that community. So it was a division of labor, women, preparing food, conserving food, being healers, weaving clothes, stuff like that. And that there was no division between the inside and the outside of the house or community. People were just living in their houses, farming the land or making shoes or baking bread. That development she talks about. And then she looks at the experts, especially medical experts, that developed afterwards, replacing the women as healers, and what that means. It's really, so far we are not yet halfway through, but it's really interesting. The last is a reread for me and also a buddy read. I'm reading this with Heidi from my reading life, and I wanted to reread Codependent, Living in the Shadow of AI by Madhumita Murgia, and Heidi was interested in reading it, so hence a buddy read. And this is, I mean, for me, as I told Heidi when we started our buddy read, I read this, it was longlisted for the Women's Prize. I saw the book, I saw the topic, and I thought, I was not interested really, but I thought I have to educate myself about artificial intelligence because it's important and it's not going to go away, and I know very little about it. So it was kind of a chore book because I felt I needed to know more, and I ended up loving it because it's really presenting the whole issue of AI in such an interesting, engaging way that I feel is fascinating. She looks at the human aspect of it. So, for instance, she also explains what an AI really is. Basically a software, really, really advanced software that is looking for pattern very fast in a huge amount of data. So it's used for self-driving cars, for facial recognition, discovering patterns in healthcare. And she looks, first of all, she explains what it is, and then she looks at various aspects. So one of the first chapters, for instance, she looks at the people who actually develop AI, not the big shots, but the ones with the minimum wage in Bulgaria or Nairobi or Pakistan, who actually look at hours and hours and hours of videos in order to do data labeling. So for a self-driving car, you have to label all the objects in the videos of a car driving. So street, lamp, ball, trash can, in order for that to be the input for the IE, so that the IE can acquire knowledge, because the IE is not really self-learning. Anyway, it's fascinating. So those are the 3 books that I'm currently reading. I will probably also pick up another a fiction maybe next week. Not sure yet, but that's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I'm very much looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one, next Sunday.